Pay me, pay me, pay me my silver now. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my silver now.
Good morning, Bix Weir, roadrunner.com with your morning horn disease, your sip of chaga coffee. I had someone email me asking, Bix, why do you think the system's going to crash all of a sudden? Wouldn't it be better to drag it on? When's this going to start? We're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it, absolutely 100%. And it has been dragging on since 1913. It's so funny when new people come into this world and say, oh my God, it can't happen that fast. And everybody who's been on the road to Ruta for 20 years says, oh my God, why is it taking so long? Everything has to do with your perspective. I know a lot of people who lost their businesses during the COVID thing. For them, it's already done. They're living on the government handouts and stuff. So yeah, it all depends on your perspective, how long this is lasting. The big issue is, why can't we drag it on? Of course they can drag it on. But the United States would fall farther and farther behind the rest of the world. We're the largest debtor nation in the world by far. So when the system collapses, the United States is pretty good, pretty well off, because we're defaulting on all this debt that we have. And it's unsustainable. We all know that. We've been hearing that for, over 100 years. So at some point, somebody's got to suck it up. And usually they try to kick the can down the road. The debt ceiling is a great example of that. And they've been kicking the can down the road. We've been kicking the can down the road. This road has gone on for over 110 years. So to say that it's taking, why can't we drag it on? We did drag it on. This is the end part of dragging it on. And now we're at a point where, like I said, the good guys and the bad guys want the system to crash and to get destroyed. The bad guys want it to crash because they're in deep shit. They're going to be blamed for all this crap, and they know they want to just erase the sins of the past. The good guys want it to crash to take out the bad guys. It's all about what happens after the crash. What kind of chaos goes on, what kind of ability we have to restart a new system. Again, I also hear people saying, well, where do I keep my money if I can't keep it in the bank or my savings and loan? All of them will be gone. Remember, any third-party possession of your assets, flip a coin whether or not it's going to be there. Flip a coin. Will the FDIC open up its coffers? FDIC, Treasury, and the Fed have not said that anything over $250,000 is insured. They can insure it because, yes, they don't have the money, but the Fed can print as much money as possible. That's what Alan Greenspan kept harping on. Hey, we have unlimited money. The value of that money is what will come into question. So I do expect the Fed to come to the rescue because of systemic issues to the United States of America, because I don't think these Congress creeps are going to extend the debt ceiling issue. It's all coming to a head. That's why you're seeing all the stuff about the Biden laptop, about Epstein and JP Morgan, and all the stuff that they've been hiding is bubbling to the surface, and it's all going to happen at once, which is good. I'm a big fan of pulling the Band-Aid because I know what happens if you delay. If you delay, you might get a couple more years or a couple hundred more years, but it gets worse and worse, and then different people come into power, and that's how the bad guys have been able to run the world for at least the last 110 years in the U.S. since we invented the central bank. I believe, and I'm sure that if you followed my work, that the central bank was created not because the bankers wanted to take over, is because the rich of the world and governments of the world would be destroyed because of what was found in the Grand Canyon. Massive amounts of gold. Right now they say there's 200,000 tons of gold that have ever been mined, or 210 or something like that, somewhere around there. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And this is where I splitted ways with my GATA friends. We didn't split ways. They just disagreed with what I was showing them, the facts that there is a hell of a lot more gold than just 200,000 tons. There's over 1 million tons and probably more. Read Peggy and Sterling Seagrave's book, Gold Warriors, and you'll get an idea. They give you all the facts and evidence. I mean, how much more evidence? If you're a gold bug and you're saying, that's ridiculous, Big, we know exactly how much gold there is in the world. That is wrong. You're looking at the world with blinders. Look at all the evidence. And I've laid out the evidence of the gold in the Grand Canyon. I mean, yeah, the evidence I laid out in my debate with Steve Santangelo was the gold found in the sand, the placer gold, because that was billions and billions of ounces. It all depended on what the value of gold was. The bankers controlled that by setting the price of gold below the price it would cost to pull the gold out of the banks of the Colorado River. They set it at, what, $20.60-something cents in 1900. That was barely profitable for the miners. And it lasted till how long? Till 1933? When all the gold was confiscated and the price was instantly raised to $35. Imagine you're a gold miner, barely surviving, but making a living at $20.67, and then all of a sudden the price goes to $35. And you're profitable, but the government confiscates all the gold and locks up the Grand Canyon, so you can't mine there and up below and above the Grand Canyon. And that was the obvious stuff that I laid out, and I had all the documentation and all the senators who were, openly talking about this stuff back in the early 1900s. And then there's the hidden stuff. Where is the mother lode for that gold? Are there multiple mother lodes? When you have placer gold in the ground, it had to come from somewhere, from a mother lode. The mother lode is the origin of all that gold. Now, it could be like some say, it's so spread out that it's been eroded away, and the Grand Canyon was formed by the Colorado River. That was probably the most ridiculous thing that geologists have ever said, that the Grand Canyon was formed by the lazy running of the Colorado River. You don't get 1 mile deep, straight, sheer cliffs from a lazy river carving it. And where's all the displaced land? I mean, if it's true that the Colorado River carved the Grand Canyon, where'd all that dirt go? There should be a big pile of dirt at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, but there isn't. The Grand Canyon was split apart during an exchange of energy between the sun, Mars, where another Grand Canyon called Valles Marineris or whatever, something like that, and the Earth. Electrical discharge. It was massive, and the evidence is there if you're willing to look at that. And I've talked about that, but yeah, I do think. But there's been some, if you believe in the remote viewing that Dick Allgaier and I did on the Grand Canyon, and the crypto viewing guys did, there are literally caverns of gold, refined gold, and gold statues and trinkets and nuggets and the whole thing in the Grand Canyon, still undiscovered by modern man. I'll be talking to my friend Dick Allgaier, I think today, and we'll talk about a few things. Cliff said something about Dick, because Dick and I go back and forth. He thinks the good guys will control us for the rest of our lives because he was told that by Michael, their friend from Europe. And Michael's a smart guy. I've talked to Michael. I talked to him for a couple hours once. I disagree with the ultimate conclusion. I agree that, yes, we have been controlled to this point, but I also know from my research into the Road to Ruta stuff, the Road to Ruta stuff is all about overthrowing those bad guys, those criminals that have controlled us for so long, and taking our power back. And how are they going to do it? By destroying the old financial system and implementing a constitutional system within the United States. Every other country is on their own. I'm sure Mexico will have a great silver standard down there because they have a lot of silver. Canada has a lot of gold. Canadians will be on a gold standard. When we break free from these criminal bankers that control us with their fiat money, that's what's going to happen. Freedom will reign everywhere. We will not go down to CBDCs. That's the controllers. That's the people that Dick has been convinced, because they've won in the past, will win in the future. And that's the argument we have. So yeah, I'm going to talk to Dick later today. We'll post it sometime this weekend. Great discussions. I love Dick Allgaier. Best remote viewer on the planet right now. Not to diss the other guys at remote viewing. They're awesome. But Dick has the experience, the knowledge, and he can clear his mind. That's what I love about Dick Allgaier. He can clear his mind better than anybody I know. He's been training to do it, and you need that clear mind to remote view. Although I agree with Cliff, his mind has been tainted since he started talking to Michael about the bad guys controlling everything and the bad guys, taking over in the future. Anyway, it's going to be a great discussion as usual. I have posted a few private road videos. The in-game, more banks to fail this weekend. Now, I'll talk about this in a second because the 4 were ready to go, and then something happened today that might give them a little breathing room. Might not. I mean, this might just be temporary until next week. There's a total of over 4,000 banks who are going to suffer the same fate as Silicon Valley Bank, as all the banks, First Republic. All the banks are the same. And until the FDIC and the Fed and the Treasury, and they watch my show, so listen to me, this ain't going to settle down until you say all deposits are covered, whether they're 250,000 or higher or 250 million. 100% of bank deposits are covered. Until they say that, the banks are going to stay wobbly, are continuing to close on a 1-by-1 basis, 2-by-2 basis. This weekend, probably get 1 or 2, but they're trying desperately with their market manipulation to hide that fact from we the people. I don't know why. Everybody wants the system to crash, but that's where we are. Let me show you where we are right now. This little slam right here, because silver was over $26. Why is the banking cabal so afraid of $30? Because they know at $30 they'll run right to $50. Why are they afraid of $50? It's all-time high from 1980 and 2011. Silver breaks over $50, then it's free sailing. I think the next stop is $250, $300, and then after that, quickly $600, maybe bounce around there for a while. And it all depends on what gold's doing, because the silver-gold ratio has to return to what the data says it should be. It's coming out of the ground at 7-1. Okay, yeah, Bix, but that's just one metric. I agree. But right now, silver-gold ratio is 80-1. So what's going to happen? So one metric is how much is coming out of the ground. But on a monetary level, gold comes out of the ground and goes back into vaults and stays as monetary metals. With silver, 60% of that is used up, is consumed. So it's really coming out of the ground at less than half of that. So it should be 3-1 ratio. But if you discount what it's coming out of the ground as and say that's just one metric, what are the other metrics? Besides the rigged price, the other metrics are what is above ground and available for investment. Many experts in silver have said that there's only about 6 billion ounces that could possibly ever come back to market at these prices. And that means, yes, people selling their silverware, melting their fillings. It doesn't mean going into every landfill and pulling out an iPhone and taking out the 100th or 1,000th ounce of silver in those. But at some point, we will get to that. So that ratio, 6 billion, the total amount out there, melting all the silverware, all the fillings, you name it, as related to gold, there's 6 billion ounces of gold in the world as well. That ratio is 1-1. 1-1. Wow. You start thinking about it, it's like, holy shit. Why is the silver ratio at 80-1 when the supply coming out of the ground is at 7-1? Above ground, potential investable silver and gold, if you melt everything down, is 1-1. People are buying more silver, paying more. Well, the banks and gold are a different thing, and I'll get to that in 1 second. But people are buying massive amounts of silver and a little bit of gold. If you have any gold, I'd cash it all in and get 80 ounces of silver. And then after the gold-silver ratio is something more normal, like 7-1 or 1-1, then cash it back in. You're going to get 80 times the amount of gold you have right now. It's the no-brainer of a lifetime. Even Jim Sinclair said, yeah, when silver runs, it's like just moonshot on steroids. It'll way surpass a moonshot, a Jupiter shot, a universe shot, a sun shot, a universe shot. Silver will be that universe shot. It'll blow away any crypto earnings that you even dreamed of. I do think gold and silver are headed to 1-to-1 before this is all over. 1-to-1. And silver won't be at $2,000. Silver will be at like $5,000 or $10,000. Imagine $5,000 or $10,000 silver. And it won't be, like Cliff has always said, yeah, silver's going to go crazy, but you won't want to live in the world that has $10,000 silver. Because you won't have cell phones and iPhones and flat screen TVs. All of this electronic use of silver, all of the solar use of silver, the electric car use of silver, none of this would have happened had not the price of silver been so massively suppressed for the last 100 years. In the industrial side of silver would not have happened if silver was, say, $1,000 an ounce. There are some other types of metals that can replace silver, but it's not as good. Silver is the number one best conductor of electricity. And the thermodynamics heat portion of silver doesn't heat up the way other metals do. All kinds of stuff is solved by physical silver on the industrial side. And need I remind you, in 1980, it wasn't industrial demand that drove silver prices to $50. Some say it was the Hunt brothers, but I don't think that. I think it was, I remember those days, although I wasn't involved in the silver market. I remember my buddy, his dad was freaking out, and they lived in a really nice house, freaking out about the monetary system, and he would pay anything. He was the one paying $50 for an ounce of silver. Of course, he got ruined because the comics at the time changed the rules to destroy the Hunt brothers, and along with a lot of other people, which could happen. You know, we live in a world where the price of silver is fake. The price of gold is fake. The price of everything is fake. We live in a fake world controlled by computers and derivatives. But at the end of the day, that's going to end. And what assured the ending was what Alan Greenspan did back in 1999, which was make sure and fight such that silver derivatives were not reported by the banks as they should have been reported. There's a big frontline, it's a news expose on that whole thing. Sheila Bair was on the other side I think she was at the CFTC. I don't remember. She was a regulator saying, oh my God, you cannot let banks run crazy with these derivatives. But that's what they did because Greenspan knew that if the banks had this power of electronic derivative money, they would destroy everything in its sight, build it such an entire gigantuan monster, $2.5 quadrillion, that would be the final blow. That would destroy everything, and Greenspan wanted to go back onto a gold standard. So that's what's going on. As for silver, today is it might be the last day to go get your silver. Now, I want to talk about 3 different ways you can think about getting silver today, Friday. Friday, what are we, May 5th? Yeah, Cinco de Mayo. Oh, yeah, we're going to have tequila tonight, apparently. Number 1, go to your local coin dealer. Get a couple of them so you can make sure their prices are good. And the beauty of these days, you can look up an online dealer while you're in the shop. Well, APMEX, for example, is a very popular online silver dealer. APMEX says this silver Buffalo round is $30.38, and can you give me a price better than that? That type of, you can use your negotiating skills. But don't remember, APMEX has to pay for shipping and insurance and delivery and all that. Whereas you go to your local store, they should be able to beat the APMEX price by pretty good margin. And I know Andy Scheckman does. And my friend Will Lair does as well at Perpetual Assets. But start with your local. Go to NGC Coin, ngccoin.com, and it has a finder, where to find silver dealers in your area. Let's say you live in Dallas, Texas. Let's see what they got for Dallas, Texas. Are there any coin dealers in Dallas? JM Bullion, Dallas Diamond, Provident Metals, Precious Metals Jewelry and Coin, Collector LLC, United States Gold Bureau, Austin Rare Coins, Liberty Coin. Look at all these coin shops in that area. Well, those are miles and miles away. Wait, let's see. Just in that area, we'll go to 3.4 miles, 10 miles, 13 miles. I mean, there's at least a handful near you. Not everybody has it. And if you don't, most people go online to places like ATMEX. You're going to pay more. I recommend, but you'll get to see it and click it, and you don't have to talk to anybody. That's fine if you want to pay more to do that. If you don't want to pay more, call Andy Scheckman at Miles Franklin or Will Lair at Perpetual Assets. Both of them can get you great deals on physical silver. Now's the time to deal with people you trust. Be very wary of people you don't know. You get to know your local dealers. If you don't know them yet, use Miles Franklin, use Perpetual Assets to call them up and say, hey, Bix said to call you guys up, and here's what I need. And they'll help you over the phone. They're not online dealers. And they'll get you a better price than the online dealers. So I price both of these together. I'll say Perpetual Assets, what do you got? Andy Scheckman, what do you got? Will Lair at Perpetual Assets is our guy. And Gus Demos, you got to love Gus. Cuss with Gus, classic show. So go to perpetualassets.com and click on silver, far right, or Miles Franklin. Give him a call or send him an email, info@milesfranklin.com. It is Friday. It is Friday. There might be bank crashes this weekend. Now, the Fed and the Exchange Stabilization Fund is doing everything they can so that the banks don't crash this weekend. It's kind of like, how long can they hold it back? The obvious thing that you're going to lose your money if you have it in a bank. And it's pretty easy to do. I mean, look at the volume on the ETF. KRE is the regional banking ETF. Look what it's done over the past 6 months. Just plummeted from 65 down to 38. These are banks. These are like the most sound investments. No, not anymore. Look at the last 5 days. This cracks me up. Regional bank shares dive as this is yesterday. PacWest falls 50% after a report that it's exploring a sale. First Horizon slumps 33%. That was yesterday. If that information stayed where it was going into the weekend, they wouldn't be alive by Monday. But today, PacWest and other regional banks soar on early trading. Shares of PacWest rose 38% after the bell after slumping 51%. These are banks. They should not be this volatile at all. This is the Exchange Stabilization Fund and friends trying, scotch taping this system together. It is insane. Here's an interesting thing. So PacWest Bank probably one of 3 or 4 that might go this weekend or next weekend. Right now, there's another thing we're running up against, but PacWest up 53% today. What changed between yesterday and today? Nothing. A banker criminal would say, oh, they should have never gone down 50%. Someone in the know says it's going down 50% because they're panicking, trying to find somebody to buy their toxic portfolio. All the bank's portfolios have been destroyed because of these interest rate hikes. It's over for U.S. banking. It's just when is the final blow. Here's how freaked out people are. So PacWest Bancorp, under the symbol of PACW. PACW. That's the one who is failing, right? Look at this. Oregon-based Pacific West Bancorp, which is PWBK versus, what was this one? PACW. So this other bank called Pacific West Bank, wait a minute, yeah, Pacific West Bank had to come out because everybody was selling their shares thinking it was PacWest, the other PacWest. Listen to what the statement they just released. PacWest Bank, a leading financial institution in the Pacific Northwest with headquarters in Westland, Oregon, wants to assure its customers and shareholders that it is financially stable and has no relation to the similarly named Pacific Western Bank, or PacWest Bancorp, based in Beverly Hills. California is currently experiencing financial trouble and possible sale in California. We understand that there may be confusion among some customers and shareholders due to the similarity of our names, but we want to emphasize that we are a completely separate entity and our financial position remains strong. Until people start pulling their money out and all of a sudden you're the weakest bank in the area again. Whether it's your name or it doesn't matter, every single bank is going to go through this. Everybody's going to question whether or not they can get their money out of the bank. FDIC insurance runs out. What happens? What happens? They have to go to Congress. Congress can't even afford to pay the debt ceiling, raise the debt ceiling. They're not gonna add the FDIC insurance. And then it's like, holy shit, my FDIC insurance isn't gonna even cover it. Again, there's only 1.28% of the amount insured in the coffers of the FDIC. The rest are gonna have to go to Congress. And Congress will either vote the money into existence or, as everybody knows, Congress is not able to do anything right now. That's where we are. So yes, even the rumor of a similar sounding bank could destroy Pacific West Bank, PWP, out of Oregon. Isn't that scary? So what is it, Bix? What is it that's going to kick the cart over? I have flashbacks to what Dick Allgaier drew when they were doing a remote viewing of the death of the dollar. What's going to happen? And he drew a picture of congressmen in the halls of Congress feeling sick because it was the last session. It's over. What would cause congressmen to come out of Congress and say, oh, fuck, it's over? How about a vote on raising the debt ceiling that doesn't pass? What if they can't do it in the next 3 weeks? 3 weeks. Because here's a great article, Flush with Cash. The IRS is offering a more accurate picture of when the U.S. will hit the debt ceiling. Because of electronic filing and electronic money transfers, the IRS has been getting money sooner and sooner and sooner, closer to the April 15th date. And so they have a better idea. No longer is guessing when this shit's going to happen. And they're coming up with June 7th. June, yeah. Less than a month away, or a little over a month away. Janet Yellen said, we got to have money by June 1st. Is this the end game for the U.S. dollar? Is this what Dick Allgaier saw in his remote viewing session? Here's just a refresher. What is the debt ceiling? Why it's important, how it affects you. The debt ceiling is the amount of money in the U.S. the U.S. is authorized to borrow to pay its bills. The U.S. runs a budget deficit, meaning its revenue isn't enough to cover spending. Surprise, surprise. The government borrows money to make up the difference. Congress regularly suspends or raises the debt limit so the U.S. can borrow more. But lawmakers are at an impasse, meaning the government could default on its debt as soon as June 1st. Failing to pay bills in full and on time may have serious economic repercussions. May have. They should change that to will have. Recession, job loss, delayed payments of federal benefits like Social Security, higher borrowing costs, and plunging stock market. Oh, by the way, what about interest on the U.S. debt? You own any debt? How many people own debt? Own U.S. government debt, U.S. government bonds. You aren't going to get a payment. And unless they do something, you won't even get paid back. That's crazy. The U.S. may default on its debt within a month, an event that would threaten severe harm for the households. What is the debt ceiling? That's an arbitrary number. They say, can't borrow past here, and they keep doing it and raising it. That's kicking the can, by the way. Okay, all this stuff. This I found very interesting from this crazy place called NPR, which is like a leftist hotspot. The fight over the debt ceiling could sink the economy. Here's how we got here. This 1981 is the first Road to Ruta, 1980, in 81. The first article for Road to Ruta documents was written in 1979. By Deborah Carpenter Beck. And that's when I look at that point, I'm going, holy shit, this is the moment that the Fed announced and it took a while for us to understand what it was, announced that there are good guys within the Fed trying to take down the system. At this time, there was Reagan started this thing called the Gold Commission for the smartest minds in the world to get together, in the U.S. mainly, to get together. Inflation was running high, and Volcker was raising interest rates. Reagan wanted to go back to a gold standard, so they had this big commission. It's called the Gold Commission Report, was written. And then Ron Paul and another guy gave an alternative to that commission report. But in the commission report, it's really interesting. You can sum up this, 500-page report. I don't remember how long it was. I read most of it. The end deduction was, we are not prepared to go on a gold standard as of yet. But if the U.S. government doesn't get its budgets in line and keeps going into debt, people will demand a gold standard. That's 1981. Look at what has happened since 1981. We went from a tiny amount of debt comparatively to right now we're at what, $32 trillion in debt. That's insane. $31.4 trillion ceiling has already been reached. Extraordinary measures have been taken, and this is the end game for that. But that was 1980 and 1981. They were talking about when to go back on the gold standard because we have massive debt. They didn't even know what massive debt was. Now we have massive debt. And that's a long time to go since that report was done. And did we get our budgets under control? No. Fail. So we will be screaming for a gold, silver-backed currency. Not backed, redeemable. Because remember, when this crashes, there'll be no faith in the government. Interesting charts here. 3 key areas of government spending. Look at most of the spending is in Social Security, which theoretically we pay into. Theoretically. Income security, which is welfare. Medicare, which is medical welfare. And Medicaid, which is medical welfare. That's the massive amount of spending that we're doing. And that's just getting bigger and bigger as we get older and older. And then look at Department of Defense gets a massive amount. And then interest. Interest right now is at $475 billion a year. $475 billion every year. And that's nothing but growing, especially because now the government has to pay so much more because they're raising interest rates. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of you guys know this, but those are the key 3 areas. Defense, but Social Security, and basically this is the socialist system. The United States of America is a socialist country now. And how can you tell? Because most of the money we spend is giving it to the people who need it. We create it and we give it to the people who need it. Whether or not that's right or wrong, you can debate, but it hasn't solved any problem in human history. Socialism has been the cause of more deaths than anything, even more than war. Look up the history of socialism, how these countries fail when they implement it, and then it always goes back to gold, silver standard. It always goes back to free markets. Because the famous saying is socialism's great until you run out of other people's money. And that's exactly what's going on right now. And who owns the most debt? The debt game is hysterical because you're a country, you're printing your currency to buy our printed currency. You can buy as much as you want, right? And they control this through Exchange Stabilization Fund, the IMF, the World Bank, and all that. But Japan owns $1.1 trillion. China owns $959 billion. The UK owns $668 billion. Imagine any of that goes into silver. Poof, the price of silver goes to infinity. Unobtainium is what Cliff has been calling it. And I agree with that. So, yeah, there we go. That's where we are on the road to Ruta. Again, go buy your silver today before the weekend starts. They're trying to hold the shit together. Keep an eye on Pac West Bank that fell 50% yesterday and is rising 50% today. Nothing changed between yesterday and today. It's up 71% now. Do you think the market, the gamers, the market riggers are going to short the crap out of it again? Absolutely. Absolutely. To me, this reeks like the riggers bought in to try to get the price up before the weekend and then started to squeeze all the people who had shorts on Pac West the weak hands, and then they're going to allow it to be slammed again. We'll find out. Nothing got fixed, let me tell you that. And there's a lot of other banks right on their heels. Western Alliance Bank, First Horizon, Zion's Bank. I've talked about that quite a bit. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the stock market goes. You know, they're doing everything. They're doing everything they can to look strong into the weekend. So it might be delayed a week. The collapse of the 3 or 4 new banks might be delayed a week. But next week starts a brand new thing, and it's like, okay, what got fixed? Nothing. Nothing got fixed. The FDIC still has not declared that they will cover everything, even though they don't have money to cover what they have right now. It would have to be a joint announcement between the FDIC, the Fed, and the U.S. Treasury that all bank deposits are covered. If you're a foreign national, it doesn't matter. Everything's covered. And what would you think would do the best with that announcement? All that means is they're going to print 100 times the money they've already said they're going to print. Gold and silver. Absolutely correct. And with the big banks getting out of their short position, if the COMEX stays open, I'd be surprised. COMEX won't stay open over $50, and then we won't know the price of silver. So go to your local coin shop today. Again, go to ngccoin.com to find out what's near you. Here, let's find out. Let's see if Paige and Josh need to go buy some silver. They go on here and they type in San Diego because they live in San Diego. Oops. San Diego. Oh, well, it came up. CK Coin and Jewelry, John Franklin LLC, Broadway Coin and Stamp, Collectibles, Tangible Investments. Those are all close by. You're going to find 2 or 3 near you if you live in a big city. If you live in a small city, you'll find somebody nearby. Check jewelry shops. They often buy and sell gold coins as well. So I hope this makes sense. I will be doing a couple private road posts this weekend. If you want to join the private road, go to roadtoruta.com. And guess what we're giving away with every subscription? An ounce of silver. The coolest collectible ounce of silver you'll ever find. The Ruta Lives coin. I think it'll be collectible because of when the road to Ruta theory is proven correct. That will be a good pat on the back for me, and I can retire just because I did my job, if you ask me. I am talking with Sean at SGT Report next week. Sean and I did one of my very, very first interviews 13 years ago. 13 years ago, and my story hasn't changed. As a matter of fact, it got more enforced by the day. Now, I didn't know about the Grand Canyon gold. I didn't know about a lot of things back then, but I knew what was happening. There are good guys behind the scenes working to take out the bad guys. And it's not about what's going on right now. That right now doesn't matter. The chaos doesn't matter. What matters is what we do after the crash, after the meltdown of the derivative market, the banks, the life savings of everybody. What do we do after the crash? And that's the most important thing that we can think about now as we sit on our lawn chairs watching this shit unfold. All right? This is Bix. I'll talk to you later.